Welcome this evening to our City Council work session and special meeting on August 6th of 2024. We're appreciative of you joining us, those who have come with us tonight. We'll begin our meeting by hearing from Council Member Dalpaz. I don't know if he has a thought or indication or pledge of allegiance, but that's up to him if he'd like to proceed.
I will provide an invocation. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful that we can gather today and discuss matters of the city of North Ogden City. We're grateful that we're able to live here, that we're able to raise our families here, and that we can be a part of such a great community. We ask that we'll be able to be mindful and thoughtful in the way that we deliberate on the different items that are on the agenda, that we can be respectful to others, and that we can come to some good conclusions that will benefit our city. We're grateful for all of the blessings that we see, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to excuse Councilmember Watson. I believe she's on a family vacation, so she will not be joining us this evening. We'll start our consent agenda, Council, by calling for any conflicts of interest based upon tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any conflicts or concerns they'd like to disclose? All right, we'll move on to item number 2 on our consent agenda. This is an action to approve the July 9th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. I believe those were sent to you in advance by Ryan, our city recorder. And you've had a chance to submit comments, but if there's any further comments, that would be the time. All right, I would look for a motion then to approve the July 9th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 3. This will be presented by our city engineer, Eric Casperson, I believe, who's joining us on Zoom. And this is in regards to the final acceptance of White Rock Subdivision Phase 1. Is Eric with us?
He is not currently. He's down at the fair getting his kids set up in their pens. And
Is that the panelist?
Okay, why don't we defer those then, if 3 and 4 till he joins us, John, and you could let us know when he joins. Is that okay, Council?
Yep.
All right. We'll now move into our active agenda. Anyone who would like to make a public comment this evening, now would be the time. Step up to the podium, state your name if you're a resident of North Ogden. And please limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes.
5. I don't have that many flowers. Kevin Burns from North Ogden, and I would like to. Dave's not here tonight, but I'd like to thank Dave and his crew for the great work. And I know you all have supported him financially, but the streets in my neighborhood have been resurfaced over the last couple of weeks, and it's pretty awesome. My teeth are feeling much better. I had a couple of big potholes I would hit every once in a while, so we appreciate that. And also, we talked to Dave, and I mentioned this earlier, that we talked to Dave about some signs to help. It's one of the children that live in our neighborhood, hearing impaired, and Dave got right on it and got some signs put up for us. And so I am a firm believer in actions prove why words mean nothing. And Dave's an action guy, so good example for the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. We'll pass that on. Dave is in training and is not with us this evening. Anyone else like to comment? All right, we'll move on to item number 6 on our agenda. Tonight, we've invited Brian Forsyth to join us. He is the owner of the property below Washington Boulevard there on 2700. And we've invited him to give us an update on what's going on there as much as he can and kind of help the council understand what the process is. You probably don't read Facebook that often, Ryan, but we've been getting some heat on why Pleasant View is getting all these great businesses and we're just getting banks and credit unions and some feeling that maybe things aren't transparent. So if you could be as transparent as possible, knowing that you're under some confidentiality agreements,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
you'd go ahead and update us on what's going there and kind of how the process works, and
Yeah. You bet.
appreciate it.
I'm happy to do so. I know many of you been working on this property for almost 9 years now. As of June 12th, I finally own it. So it has been a battle to get to this point, but I thought it'd be good for me to just give a quick update, background of what we've done to this point, the hurdles we've had to jump to get to where we're at, and what our plan is going forward. As many of you know, the Barker family has owned that property for 100 or more years. It was a farm. I think, yeah, you can see all this property by Walgreens, behind Walgreens, where the O'Reilly is. That was their family farm for over 100 years. So there was a lot of sentiment there that they did not want to sell. However, there were many of the siblings that were elderly, and they were also unwilling to take out any debt or put the land up as collateral. So I started originally as a partner with them, and I secured several really good leases. But when we went to finance those leases, we were unable to do so because they wouldn't allow the bank to put the land up as collateral. Then things changed, and the city went through a big process, if you remember, of form-based code. That was a 2-year thing. You probably all got sick of seeing me because it pretty much ruined our ability to attract certain users, mainly because the city had an interest in putting no box users along 2550 North. And what that did is it and then there was a whole bunch of form-based code that it just stopped development of a lot of those users. So we went through for several years going through that. The code got changed. We had several meetings about that. Then some things changed, and some of the siblings that owned this property had some spouses that had passed away. Things changed. In addition to the complexity of this property, America First Credit Union had a ground lease for that building. They leased that building from the Barkers. It was like a 40-year lease. They were paying like $1,200 a month for that lease. They had rights of first refusal for any of the property that was sold. So what happened was there was a lot of back and forth. If you'll recall, as soon as we developed the O'Reilly's property, we put in that 300 East Street, and that created a very viable subdivision, a viable corner. Well, because America First had rights to that corner for so long, who snapped up the other corner? Well, Mountain America Credit Union wanted to snap up the other corner. So America First bought that corner. They also own the corner to the north. So America First really wanted to own that corner on 2600 and Washington, but they still had 11 years left on their lease at $1,200 a month and had no motivation to move anywhere. But they also wanted to make sure that they had a solid place to land, which you can't blame them. It's a great corner. And so they secured the other 2 corners and paid more than anybody else could pay to keep that development, an option for them when their lease expired. So over the last 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, I've been negotiating between America First and the family to get the purchase of this property which would allow us to go forward and develop the rest of this property. So by doing so, we had to, get rid of the lease that was on the building. We had to come up with a price that made sense to the family. We had to make sure that it worked for America First. And in doing so, over the last really 6 weeks ago when we closed, what happened is America First bought this hard corner, which was not without many trials. And Mayor Berube, we worked on this monthly. Some of the issues, though, were signage. America First needed the proper signage, so we worked on signage. Another issue was access. One of the family members that owned this property owned the Walgreens. There's 4 siblings. One of them owns the Walgreens, and then all 4 of them owned the rest of the property. UDOT, there was a lot of problems to overcome with UDOT because the light between 2600 North and 2550 North is not long enough to accommodate for the stacking there. And the access points were a real tricky situation. We originally got told no by UDOT completely, and that they would not remove any median, not give us any access. And I thought that was going to kill the whole deal. But 6 or 7 months ago, we had a meeting. City all came to that meeting. Actually, the city called the meeting for us. And we walked out of there with them giving us access. They were also shutting down all access on 2600 North, not giving access there, which would have really hurt us. We were able to get through that hurdle, which allowed America First to move forward and close on that property. The agreement consisted of several facets, I guess. One of those was one of the terms of the agreement was, and I can speak about this now because we've closed, but as of 6 weeks ago, I couldn't. One of the portions of the agreement, because I was a partner with the Barker family and we couldn't develop anything, and I'd spent a lot of money on that road. The city had spent money on that road. Over the years, we'd spent a lot of money preparing for development, but never could move forward. What happened was America First gave me the right to purchase both of the other corners that they had secured. So as of the 12th of June, America First closed on, actually, I think it was the 16th, but the 16th of June, America First closed on the hard corner. And by doing so, granted me the rights to purchase the corner that is right there. Yeah, the Lee's corner, and then the corner here. So now we are actively pursuing. I was not able to market either one of those corners until those agreements were done. Part of what happened here too is I can understand the city or the community saying we're only getting banks, right? Well, now you can see some of the reason why there's a bank going next to O'Reilly's is simply because there was no other place for the bank to go. And that dollar amount that they were willing to pay was necessary to help the family let go of the rest of the property and move forward. Because between those 2 credit unions, we were able to get it done. Going forward,
Brian,
yeah,
just
please.
a point of clarification. The Barkers sold, you didn't sell those 2 pieces. The Barkers sold the piece to the credit union
Yeah, the Barkers sold
and
Mhm.
to
America First.
Mountain America.
Yes, to Mountain America and America First. They sold the property to them directly, and then I bought all the rest of that 6.5 acres. And that was really the only way that we could make that work. Aside from that, at this point, we're moving forward developing, and based off what you said earlier, the frustration about Pleasant View, nobody's more upset about that than me, to be 100% honest. This morning, I had a deal already to LOI next to Mountain America, and they announced a Target down by the freeway. That deal died on me. I am very upset, mainly just because it's been 8-9 years that I've been working on this, and that affects things. However, we've got some really great users right now that we're working on. But, for example, we had a Chipotle deal ready to go here. Actually, Colton here didn't see him. He was our engineer, drew it all up, and he since taken other employment. And I saw him here. But how many iterations have we gone through on this site, Colton? Lost track. We have drawn up so many different renditions that would make this work. The Chipotle deal, we were ready to go. I think they'd even came into the city, hadn't they? I don't know, John, have they come into the city?
They've asked for sign permits and stuff. And
Yeah, so they backed out because of the economy. They can't find enough helpers to work in their stores. So, I have a fully approved set of plans I spent $35,000 on, and I don't get anything back. I'm just back to square one. However, we've got several good LOIs, and I'm happy to share them with you, the ones that I can. We are looking at a large gym in the area. I think we'll come to terms within the next couple of weeks. I sent over a signed proposal today, as a matter of fact. So I think that'll come through. We've got several other restaurants, LOIs from Zupas, LOIs from Super Chicks, LOIs from Wingstop, LOIs from Jersey Mike's, LOI from Swig. And then we are negotiating right now, very early stages. Don't hold me to any of this, by the way, because it's not signed, but we're negotiating with Olive Garden right now. The problem with that is they require so much parking. And if you look at this site, I've got a few hurdles to overcome, and the city's been great to work with, but one of them is depth here. We don't have a lot of depth. It's been told to me that it's very important for the city to keep 2550 open feeling. Well, then that shuts off the 300 east. If you face the buildings to the east there on that parcel, you shut that off, which doesn't allow for the development to continue on to the pond as well. So, and then also we need enough parking fields to accommodate all of this parking. So one of the user that actually left us this morning that went down towards Target was a mattress firm. I wasn't excited about a mattress firm, except for the fact that they're not a heavy parking and they don't require a drive-through. Right now, there's a huge push for drive-throughs. There's a huge press for parking heavy users. You got an Olive Garden that wants 125 stalls. And then you've got, several these drive-through users. So what we'd resorted to when Chipotle left was do one drive-through next to Mountain America and a shop building that had no drive-throughs to try to maximize square footage to accommodate the land cost, which was not cheap, but also still meet all of our parking requirements. So we've got several other exciting things I can't say. One specific user that I think the city will be ecstatic about. It's a great user, but I can't disclose any of that until I'm further along, especially with considering the fact that we have competition down the street, and our land cost and the basis that is associated with it was more money, and so we have to be very selective to make things work. Other than that, though, I'm enthused by the fact that we have lots of good users that are interested, but it has been a chess game saying, okay, what will fit? How are we going to park it? One of the things we did when Chipotle left is we said, okay, to justify the land cost, maybe we need to switch from a 3-tenant building to a single tenant building with a drive-through and do 2 of them, because that justifies a higher value and allows for the banks to finance it easier. It just, we're working through all of those things right now, but I would anticipate, Mountain America is under construction. The next pad, there'll be 2 more buildings between Mountain America and America First. And I would anticipate that you'll see plans and concrete site plans and things within the next 6 weeks. We already have them, but we're just finalizing with the users and making sure that the parking works. Specifically because I'm probably giving you way too much information, but I want to be transparent. The gym that is interested is 40,000 square feet. If you put a 40,000 square foot box on that, the amount of parking that's required by code is substantial. But I have 2 other users, a 13,000 square foot box and a 12,000 square foot box, that are willing to go there. However, I don't think that they'll be as attractive to the city. And I don't think that they'll provide as much of a draw here. So we're just going through all those site plans and trying to decide where we can push people, especially now that we have those other 2 corners that we can push it to. The other thing is once the pond is moved, that'll make a lot of difference too, because that's some ground that can be used for those mid-box uses. And right now I'm trying to jam it all on that 1 6.5 acre parcel and get the tenants up on the frontage that can help justify the land cost, while also, meeting all of the parking requirements. So there's going to be several site plans coming in the next 6 weeks or so. And I plan to have, a lot of conversations with Scott and the mayor, whoever else would like to have conversations about that, on how we direct and how we lay this out and how we can fit parking and how we can have it be visible to the streets and how we can maximize or minimize the walled off feel on 2550. But those are some of the things that we've faced. However, until 2 months prior to June 16th, I'd never had a signed agreement that would allow me to actively market stuff. Well, I had a signed agreement, but they had outs. They had the family had the rights to, if they didn't like the site plan, not move forward and sell that. They've been great. We're going to put a nice little memorial to the farm and the history of the ground, which was really important to them. But all of those little details were big sticking points in the negotiation of a very complicated transaction. I think I've got 54 active developments right now, and none of them are like this one. This is by far the most exciting one, I think. I think that once we can move, and now that we're going to move, it's fun to not take who you can get, but to really think about who's coming and how they fit. And, we're being able to be a lot more selective this time, but there are some parameters that are more difficult, specifically the depth, the land cost, parking ratios. And, for example, you can't do, like, if you do a chicken user, you can't do another chicken user. You can't do, there's lots of different things that we're working through right now. So any questions for me? Does that help at all? Does that make everybody feel like?
Yeah, we'll let the council ask any questions they may have. You made it sound quite simple because we got to deal with the light at 300 East, right?
Yeah, that's the
Which
problem.
UDOT was kind of trying to sway away from till we reminded them we had
Yeah.
an agreement. I think the ingress and egress took a little work there, working with UDOT to get that done.
Yeah.
They wanted to really limit access. And I think the last thing we want is to have access like the development down at 2700.
Oh, that's, yeah, absolutely.
That's the worst it's terrible. We
For-
want a quality.
Yeah, for the limitations that we have on 2600 in Washington, specifically the distances between the lights, it's going to be great. I mean, you think about that, a hard lit intersection at the Maverick intersection, a lit intersection at 2600, a lit intersection at 300 East, a right in, right out off of 2700 North. There was a lot of communication in this negotiation because by doing this development, it was going to necessitate a median that was going to kill Lee's and affect that. There was a traffic study that went involved in that. I mean, honestly, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars getting to this point. Well, millions now. But yeah, we've spent a lot of money getting to this point. But really, that access is going to be incredible for these users if we can lay out the big box users in a way that makes sense. And you'll all have the opportunity to approve some of these site plans and do things. So I actually appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to explain up front what I'm trying to deal with, beforehand, so that, you can see it's not for lack of pushing and trying. And, but yeah, but where we've got another site about this size in Elko, Nevada right now. NDOT came in and completely wiped it out. I mean, it's almost what we've got here is really good access for where it's going to be.
I think just to explain, one of the main accesses will be where America First Credit Union is
Yeah.
today. That'll be the access off Washington Boulevard. But basically, UDOT started out by saying
Nothing.
nothing.
Well, and part of the problem was because the Walgreens is owned by one of those people, but not all of them collectively, UDOT was requiring all of those access points to be combined into one. And we couldn't do that because not all the same people were at the table. And so what we've been able to negotiate with UDOT is we're going to put an access right where the drive-through canopy is currently on America First. And if at some point in the future, Walgreens redevelops, they're going to need to join that and get rid of one access and have one access there. But honestly, I wasn't thinking that UDOT would do that either. I thought we'd be stuck there.
They got pretty flexible there for a while.
They did, yeah. So that's good. But yeah, I'm excited to actually be able to move forward and sign an LOI and really negotiate with somebody, knowing that I can deliver at this point. And I think that's the main difference today from 6 weeks ago. Any questions for me here?
The other complexity is it doesn't look like we're going to be getting any money from the federal government for this, moving of this pond anytime soon.
Oh, really?
So we have to start talking about a plan B, because that's 6 acres where the soft goods retail is planned
Yeah,
to go. And it's got to make that development work. So we're going to have to have some discussion about what we do now, because it's, I don't know, John, I've sat in on a couple of those meetings and I don't walk away feeling very positive that anytime soon we were going to get funding. It seems like Pine View's kind of lost
About,
interest.
as we talked about maybe 4 months ago, they started NRCS just started shifting, and then Pine View is getting weird because they only have so much money too. But yeah, we've got to have the nice thing is with a partner like Ryan, we've got a contract on the ground that can help get our basin moved, and whether or not Pine View's able to come with us, that they just might be out of the deal. I mean, that's the reality of it. If they don't want to participate now, they might participate later. I guess is probably the better way to say it.
The reality is that basin, one of the numerous conversations I've had with Mayor Ruby was, I think from several years ago, I said, my biggest thing to overcome on this project as a whole is, if you look at that project as a whole, you either face 2600 North or you face Washington. And you need to have a soft goods mid-box retail component, which unfortunately requires docks, delivery docks, and dumpsters, and all of those things. And so if you face 2600 North, all of those things have to occur on 2550, which was a bad, thought, especially with the pool and everything there. But by lumping in the detention pond, it allowed us to turn all of that facing Washington. And those docks and those bays and those dumpsters would be, back behind with a big block wall separating the residential, and would allow to keep a lot of that flow. That's where I am a little bit, concerned right now with this larger gym versus the two smaller users on this first parcel, because I don't want to face Washington and block off everything to the west, because if you do that, now this property doesn't flow well. We would lose one of the access points across 300 North. The way that I have planned and tried to move forward with this was large or mid boxes back against the residential facing east, pads down 2600 and pads down 2550. And we've been successful thus far with how we've, designed it. But that is a big component. And I'm here to be a partner if there's a way we can make that work, because that's going to be a big deal to the overall development.
Okay, Councilmember Pulver, did you have some questions?
Well, I think LOI is letter of instruction or intent, right?
Yes, sir.
So many different acronyms.
Yeah.
JD's got the same thing with the government, but and I guess the big thing to me was just hearing stuff, because Mayor's talking about Facebook, but I'm talking about all my family and relatives, especially my wife, yelling and screaming that, anyway. So I appreciate your time and really going through the explanation of why. I think a lot of people were like,
Sure. The one thing that was, to be 100% honest, which really caused a slowdown in this whole process, was that though. Think about it. If you're the Barker family and you've owned this for 100 years, and the city gets all together and says, let's have a charrette and tell you what you're going to do with your property. That was probably the biggest thing that slowed this negotiation down. And then the form-based code coming in and saying, hey, we're going to make this, make that. And I deal with this every single day. I just had a deal in Kaysville. If you're familiar with Kaysville, I bought the Granny Annie's right off the interstate, and Facebook page is going crazy, oh no, it's going to be another car wash, and it's going to be another this, it's going to be another that. I went and met with the city and said, I desperately need the city's help, because if you put a median in this road, we will end up having a car wash, because I have to meet my financial, obligations to my investors, and a car wash is a destination, not a convenience. This is a convenience. That's why the help that the city gave me with UDOT was monumental, because if we got blocked off from all this with no access and with medians, this would become a destination, I would be in here looking at you saying, I spent a whole bunch of money. I desperately need to put some apartments here, or I desperately need to put some office where people go in the morning and they leave at night, not something that somebody wants to swing in and grab a meal and leave, or swing in, and so it's been a huge help. I had the opposite experience in Kaysville less than 2 months ago, and I got an LOI from Quick Quack, actually. Colton used to work. I got an LOI from Quick Quack, and I'm stuck at a very difficult decision to say, I know the city is going to hate this, but I have investors that did this. So I've appreciated, and I used North Ogden as the example when I went and met with that city and said, let's team up. What you want is what I want. Like I have the same desire. I grew up in Brigham City. I want to see this place. You know, I've never been so excited as when I could work here instead of Elko, Nevada and Las Vegas and Montana. I don't plan on ever selling any of this, you know, which means I want it to be healthy and I want it to, we use 1031 exchange funds from other projects sold out of assets out of Montana to invest in this property. We also owned the Smith's Marketplace land in 2008 and we were going to keep that forever. And 2008 happened and we ended up selling that. And that's been my dad's biggest regret. We held on to it for years and made payments through the downturn. And this is a great piece of real estate. There's so much, your demographics from this city are incredible. You know, if you look at, you know, Chick-fil-A in 12th Street or Dollar Tree on 5 Points, they keep track of the area codes where their purchasers, you know, come from. Dollar Tree, I've done 300 Dollar Trees. They say that most of the business is from North Ogden there. Chick-fil-A is the same. I've heard the same thing from them that it's a huge part of their business coming from North Ogden. You guys have a great demographic where there's lots of discretionary income. And you know, you've got the traffic counts. We can make this great. I'm really excited about it.
So Ryan, speaking of Chick-fil-A, that was one of the groups you were talking with too, and maybe the council would like to know how they made their decision, why they made their decision to go west.
Target. That's what it was. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have the real estate to make a Target work. You know, I know that, you know, Walmart was interested in the past, but they need 23 to 25 acres. You know, we have 7 and 6.5. So we have got to really, really hit it out of the park on some. And honestly, I honestly think that the one user I'm talking to, you'll be happier than Chick-fil-A.
Good.
I really believe that. It's not signed, it's not done, but I talked to him as recently as this morning. I would be excited. My wife would be excited. Your wives would be excited.
Important one is that Chris's wife's excited.
Yeah, she'll be excited. I promise. But
And Ryan, just to clarify, when you talked about the city trying to tell them what they were going to do with that property that turned the Barkers off.
it wasn't the city.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was the Charettes, right? They have everybody come into a meeting and say, hey, what do you envision this property to be? Like, how should we zone this or how should we do that? It wasn't turning them off. It was just, it's always hard for, you know, when you own the property, you want to make as much money as you can, but you also want to, you know, do something that you can be proud of. And they wanted both of those things. And it was difficult, you know, especially through the form-based code era, where they felt like that they wouldn't be able to do one of the things that they needed to, they couldn't get the tenants that they wanted that would do both things. And, you know, I can see it both sides. The city needs to make plans to protect the nature, the architectural design, the health of their economic centers. But if you put too much there, it limits what a business, you know, if you say to McDonald's, you can't use yellow. If you say to O'Reilly's, you can't use red. If you, there's these retailers, they look at things and they say, okay, great access, great population, great, you know, all these goods. And then they weigh it and they say, okay, the building has to be up against the road. That's 1 point against it. Our sales will suffer with that. Oh, we can't have our branded color. Our sales will suffer with that. Oh, we have to have all this architectural. Our impact fees are X. And it's a balancing act. And at the end, they say they're going to make money or they're not, you know? And so really it just comes down to making sure that balance is there. And that's why I've appreciated the city of North Ogden, because I've been able to talk about some of these users. And there's one very sensitive thing I can't share, but there's one very sensitive thing that has slowed things down over just the past 6 weeks, because if we make certain moves, it might create action in other businesses in the city that would be negative. And so we're having to take all that into consideration, and we're doing a good job of it. But what I would ask is, especially if there's some frustration, I think a lot of that can be mitigated by the fact that this is new blood. As of 6 weeks ago, 9 years or 10 years or whatever, like that's all gone. As of right now, things are changed. We are a developer. We aren't a family that's held this as a homestead for 100 years. I need to develop this. I can't afford to keep this vacant.
So Ryan, talk to us. Have you had any pressure about a steakhouse on there?
I have had so much pressure. I've been thinking about calling it Bexels and Barubies. Thinking if they'll come in and cook on the weekends, but
We might have to.
yeah, no, we've had pressure. We had some good conversations, but again, just like Mattress Firm, Target drives a lot. Whoever we can get in those mid box, if we can create a center, we have a better shot at those things. But we have got to create a center here, which is why the next several weeks I'll be talking with Scott and several of everybody else, and we can go through what options we have, and we can properly plan how to lay out. And there's a very good chance I appreciate this opportunity, because I might be coming saying, hey, this is the right user, but we don't meet parking code. Hey, this is, if we're going to be successful here with the, just like the UDOT issue, there's going to be some give and take. And I am going to respectfully, request that give. As I came in here, this gentleman back, he's gone now. Oh, he is. He came over, he's like, you're a glutton for punishment. So I was here 3 years ago when you got beat up about a 7-Eleven on 1700 North. I went through 9 months of planning commission. We talked about clock towers, and you were there. You remember, they wanted it to be the gateway to the community. 9 months. I got a unanimous approval from planning commission after 9 times. And then I got a unanimous rejection from city council. And then 7-Eleven canceled, took too long. I was at $165,000. Like, that's the stuff that kills people like me, and I wouldn't have brought that up, but he brought it up. Blame him. But the reality is when I got to city council, I had really good direction. This makes sense. I sat down with Mayor Berube. I talked to Mr. Barker here. I talked to Mr. Severing. I had lots of good, I talked with Phil. What's his last name? Sorry. Swanson. I talked with Mr. Swanson, and they said, look, we know, let's turn this, let's do this. And in 1 month, we had it figured out, got the approval, but it was too late. 7-Eleven had moved on and decided that they wouldn't want to pursue. Time is a killer of all deals, which is why you have great reason to be concerned about time. But my response to that is, we're 6 weeks in right now, fresh blood, fresh investment, and we're excited to move forward. So I welcome all of your input. I would love, anytime any of you have questions or concerns or thoughts, feel free to reach out to me. I am certain that we'll get to know each other well over this whole thing. And yeah, we're an open book. We're right up across the street from Maddox. So anytime you want to come up, I get sick of Maddox, but I'll take you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Forsyth? John?
What property is Target landing on?
I don't know for sure. I just heard today, you already knew that. See, I got a call this morning from, he knows everything. So I got a
fire
call.
marshal.
I got a call
That
this
answers
morning.
the question. I know the property if it's
do?
in his jurisdiction. It's not in your jurisdiction?
I just got a call this morning because we were ready to sign our LOI with Matches Firm. They've been pushing me for the last 2 weeks. I sent it back signed on Friday, and they called and said, "Hey, there's a Target going down the road, and we have an opportunity to go there. We need the driver there." So
I don't know it's public knowledge yet, so.
maybe it's not, but it's not. But I'm not under any NDA to disclose. So I don't. I just heard this morning. I don't know anywhere, but I heard by the freeway. So
Well, there's a really big parcel over there. so
right
that
behind
works.
Maverick, right? I would guess, or somewhere over there.
Of course, I got to get the road in, make it work.
Yeah. So, and it's very inexpensive property, you know. So
Okay, well,
yeah.
Ryan, thank you.
Any
you have
other
more
questions? Yeah, I'm happy to.
Anybody?
No,
Now's the
it was
time.
comprehensive. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Great,
efforts. and
thank
let
you
us
very
know what we
much.
can do to help.
Okay, sounds good. I will. Appreciate it.
Eric is on.
Why don't we go with the chief? Since he's got to get over to Night Out with Crime. Is that okay, council? Since Mr. Casperson lost his place. Got to move fast in this world. John, should we go
So
there?
are we
then?
jumping to item 10 then?
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion to
We-
adjourn the agenda?
Yeah, anything on the active agenda, we do a motion.
Has Eric got some other commitments too that he's got to get to, or can he?
I think
Oh.
he's just helping his kids at the Weber County Fair. That's why can't be here in person.
Okay, can he wait till the chief's in? or-
I don't know. I can ask him.
Oh, is he not online then?
I can let him speak. Eric, are you there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, hey, Eric, can you hang with us for a little while the chief makes his strategic plan?
Yes.
He's got Night Out with Crime that he'd like to get to.
Okay. Nope, that'll work. No, I deserve it. You're right. I need to get on there quicker. So nope, that'll work.
Hey, this is fast moving business here, Eric. You have a motion, Councilmember Barker?
Make a motion that we amend our agenda to put item number 10 now.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of moving item 10 to what now I guess would become item 8? Whatever it is,
7.
maybe 6 or 7, depending on what we do with Eric. Okay. Chief?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, John, for the opportunity. I'm going to ask Ryan if she'll click on my presentation.
It's John.
I'm going to ask John if he'll click on my presentation. This is a great opportunity for me to come before you. And if you go up just a couple of slides, John. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. This is the North Ogden Police Department's strategic plan presentation to the council. My purpose tonight is to obtain concurrence from the North Ogden Mayor, City Council, and City Manager on the strategic plan, goals, objectives, methods, and priority of tasks, along with the measure of effects for our strategic plan moving into the future for the North Ogden Police Department. Next. Our end state is to have a vibrant and healthy, economically sound city enjoyed by the residents, our visitors, and tourists. We want a high favorability of the city administration and specifically the police department by the residents and the business owners of the city. And we want to reduce Part 1 crimes, our neighbors' crimes, below the top or within the top 5 of the state of Utah. And make sure that crime stays down. And then we want to make sure that we have a highly competent, and it's hard for me to read from here because of the angle, highly competent and highly trained police department within the city.
What's neighbors?
NIBRS is it's the national incident-based crime gathering system. And we used to use UCR, which is the other one, the older one. We're moving to this. It's what the DOJ recommends. Many agencies are moving within the country towards it, but they're slow to move toward it. And we're not. We're jumping right in and we're getting those statistics. They're in the rear about a month. And so we can have those. For example, we have July's we'll get this month. And we'll be able to go through and look at the data and see where we're at. Fortunately, North Ogden has a low crime rate, and it's really good. We have good people that live here, and we have an excellent police department. So we take that data and we drive our projects with that data, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we go through. But it's interesting because we have part one crimes is what we used to follow, which was 7 crimes that are the most violent crimes, property crimes, and things like that. NIBRS went in and took those 7 and broke them down even more. And there's different groups. There's a type A and a type B, or class A to class B. And they break them down under crimes against society, crimes against property, and crimes against persons. So individually. So you would have crimes against person would be like aggravated assault. Crimes against society would be like prostitution, and crimes against property would be theft. So that's how we break them down. You're welcome. Our pathway to success is an intelligence-based policing. The use of information and the data that we gather that and then we analyze that data will directly push what direction our proactive policing will go, as well as special projects where we can reduce crime, criminal activity, and the related conditions to the city that enable crime. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. Briefly on this slide, it will prioritize our activities and it will guide our strategic effort in what we do. So for example, a great example is, let's say we have an increase in DUI activity. We start seeing that we're pulling over more and more people that are driving under the influence of alcohol. We create a project where we focus on those high areas of DUI activity, and we do that every weekend on Friday and Saturday because those are our highest days. We're going to be able to, through CompStat, which we'll talk about in a minute, we'll be able to pinpoint what our highest areas of crime are, what our highest times of crime, the highest day. It's interesting. It's not what you think. Usually Friday is up there, but Wednesdays, it's been my experience, are the highest crime days. I can't explain it. I don't know why. I just know that it's true. And so we have more people on Wednesdays. Thursday is a little bit high as well. And then our regular shifts are on Friday and Saturday, and we're able to handle it. It's fascinating to me that it would be on a Wednesday. I don't know why. Can't explain it. Somebody could, they'd have the answer to everything. Next, please. Critical to our success is that we prioritize our tasks. The police department can do anything. We really can. We just can't do everything, especially at the same time with the demands that the city has on the police department. This is our mission vision. I'm going to have to move and talk louder so I can read it.
It's on that screen right there.
Great. I'll move over here. Perfect. Thank you. Sounds perfect in my face. You guys mind if I sit?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, this is much better. It's fantastic. Okay, the mission statement for the North Ogden Police Department is we strive to provide a safe and secure community for all that visit, work, and live in North Ogden City. That has been the mission statement for a few years now. The vision statement is new. The North Ogden Police Department maintains public safety by reducing crime, destroying the perception of criminality, and working with the community to create an atmosphere in which all people may live, thrive, and find contentment safely and without trepidation. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is what our police department does. That's our vision. And this strategic plan is based on these 2 things, specifically our mission. Next. We've established about a month ago new values for the North Ogden Police Department: integrity, compassion, next, excellence, loyalty, next, courage, and innovation. Innovation is important because of you can go to the next one, John, thanks. We're going to really utilize data we're gonna extrapolate information from our crime reporting systems that we have. It's called Spillman, and various other ones through animal control and code enforcement. And we're also gonna tap into the Area Tactical Command Center, which is in Ogden. We have that ability to reach into that system and pull various things, including cameras and Spillman. They get into Spillman as well as NIBRS. And we can put all those things together, pool that information, and analyze the data. We do that monthly with our administrative staff, which is sergeants and above, where we're able to look at particular slides that tell us information like call volume, responses to calls. Do we need to improve our response to calls? What types of calls are we getting? How do our NIBRS data look? How does our NIBRS data look? And then we're able to pinpoint what we can do better to meet our goals. And here are our primary goals. Reduce Group A NIBRS crimes, which I talked about before. And if you have any questions, please interrupt me. Maintain a sense of order and security through the city of North Ogden, and destroy the perception of crime. And that is an interesting one. And there's a lot of ways that we can do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about it as it comes up. But basically, as we're out there in our marked vehicles and we are enforcing traffic laws, we're doing foot patrols in various plazas and areas where there's businesses. This new project will be fantastic, especially when it's new. We'll be there to make sure that people see the police presence. Lights and sirens aren't going. We're just walking through. We're saying hello. We're introducing ourselves to the business owners. And then we also go into the neighborhoods and of course drive around, get out, stop at the lemonade stands with the kids. All of those things help to destroy the perception of crime. We're fortunate here in North Ogden because of the demographics that we have. The perception isn't high, but it's still there. And there are people that pay attention to small, simple things. It's not the big, giant robbery sprees and things like that. We will pay attention to those things, continue to pay attention to those things as those small complaints come up. Next. This is a big slide. I'm just going to go through it really fast. The objectives for goal 1, if we go down to the very bottom of that, you can read through this. You'll have all are welcome to a copy of this, of course, is utilizing that modified CompStat model for holding our commanders, supervisors, and our officers accountable. If you're not familiar with CompStat, it was developed in the 70s by a detective in New York. It was a huge, huge shift in how police work was done. CompStat, if you've watched TV, some TV shows out there, The Wire, some other ones have displayed it in their shows, and it's intense. The commanders stand up in their full dress uniforms and they are dressed down by the chief or the commissioner, whoever it might be. We're modified here. We take the data, we work together, and we keep people accountable, but it's not as intense. The data is intense. That's what we want to pay attention to, not the process of dressing somebody down. So that's where that comes from. We want to be proactive. We want to patrol, and we want to direct our efforts. And that's basically what that slide says. Next. For goal number 2, the perception of crime, we'll talk about that a little bit. We want to locate, investigate, and abate environmental conditions and locations leading to or causing diminished sense of security. So CEPTED, which is the enforcement through environmental conditions, we can suggest to businesses that they put more shrubbery out in front of their windows so that they don't get broken into if that is a problem. More foot patrols in areas where we see increased crime. We'll regularly interact with those businesses. We want to engage with our community by using social media, press information, being transparent as we possibly can to ensure that the citizens know what's going on. I think it's important. We don't want to hide behind any type of crime data. We don't want to hide behind the possibility that some things may be happening or not happening in a particular area. We want to get out ahead of it, and we can utilize social media to do that. We want to develop key talking points on a variety of subjects for the officers to use, which I'm working on now, so that they can talk about the positive things, not the things that they hear or read on Facebook, but they can say, no, you know, you may have heard this information, but this is really what's going on, and just be transparent with the citizens. Then, of course, we want to use technology and data and utilize CompStat to support this goal of destroying the perception of crime. Next. Goal number 3 is to create a sense of order throughout the city. A lot of that just starts with people seeing police cars. Mr. Pulver, you brought up your wife. My wife brought up 3 days into the job. I don't see cars anymore. Are you telling your guys not to drive around? I'm just not seeing the cars like I used to. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I just don't see the police cars like I used to see. And I said, that's because we have that special white one. You better watch out for it. And then she started paying attention. And sure enough, she started seeing police cars. So it was just kind of funny that she would bring that up. That sense of order is really important. Our family members see it. And it's people want to know that the police are around, not just responding with their lights on or pulling cars over. The most important one on this slide is the high visibility of contacts. Contacts and enforcement are important, but contacts are more important to me. Enforcing the law and reminding people of, especially traffic enforcement, which is the reason why we conduct traffic enforcement, is not for punitive damages or punitive results. It's to educate, it's to enforce, and it's for engineering. Believe it or not, those are the 3 E's that drive traffic enforcement throughout our country. And we want to continue to do that. Foot patrols, mentioned that before, special enforcement activities like a DUI checkpoint. We work with the state for those things, and a lot of them move towards where people enter into our city, but we can certainly do our own projects in the areas that we start seeing problems. And then we want to do the placement of identifiable cameras and platforms, which we already have established throughout the city, speed signs, as well as camera signs, or cameras for traffic enforcement. Next. This is how we're going to measure our effects of what we're doing and what we need to do better. That the NIBRS Part A crimes exceed the rate of reduction of the national and state crime levels. We are right at that level right now. So the reduction in crime that we see on average over the last 5 years is right at that national level. I would like to get it lower than that, or higher, a higher reduction, if you will. We want to reduce the number of calls for service, and we can do that various different ways. We're working on some projects now, like online reporting could help with that. And then just education, teaching people like Night Out Against Crime, where they can handle their problems that are specifically civil and aren't criminal, that don't need the police there. They can handle those situations on their own because they feel confident that they can do that, and that we're just a phone call away if it starts to escalate. And then we want to monitor Facebook and other social media with positive or negative scoring, and that scoring is just comments. Bless you. That's just comments from people, good positive comments. From what the small little investigating that I've done before I became the chief and since, is just reading about the city, seeing what people comment on Facebook, and they're very positive about our police department. And we want to continue that. And then, of course, if we see an increase in tax revenues because people are coming in here and spending more money, that businesses are growing and developing, more people are moving in, we see increase in tax revenues, and that tells us as a police department that we're doing our job. Next.
Just a quick question on calls for service. If we're telling citizens to call Weber County Dispatch for, I mean, we've been doing a lot of like throwing snow into the streets, I mean, does that screw up your thought, or not thoughts, but your metrics if we push that more, if that makes sense?
That they don't call? Is that what you're saying?
No, saying, well, if you want to reduce calls for service, but yet we are telling folks that if you have a problem,
To call.
to call.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if that screws it up or not, but
It doesn't, because we can break it down, and if we really
Okay.
dug into it, we could see what types of calls were coming in, and we could say, okay, it's all for burglary from a motor vehicle. Okay, we want to pay attention to that. We had a big rash of people throwing snow into the street, maybe hit a couple of cars even. We focus on that. That's good. We want
Okay.
that. We do. Yeah, it's on that side of it, versus if a whole bunch of people don't call, one or two things are happening. either we have huge crime issues and people are afraid to call because they don't want the police to come and identify other crime situations, like a drug house, for example. So they don't call over domestic violence because they're doing drugs and they're worried that they're going to get in trouble. That's scary. So if we're moving along and calls are just going and they dip down a little bit and then they increase, during Super Bowl and things like that, we pay attention to those things. But if we see spikes of calls and they stay high, then we have an issue because people are seeing crime, they're calling it in, and that means that we need to identify what's happening. So the reduction sends us a message and the increase sends us a message. That makes sense.
Hey, Chief, just want to clarify something on an increased tax revenues.
Yes.
For those who view this later. That does not mean writing additional tickets. People,
No.
people don't understand
No.
that approximately 85% of any ticket that's written goes to the state of Utah. We basically get enough just to cover our court operations. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, I will
So
clarify
people-
that myself as well, and to say the city does not make money off of tickets, and we do not have a quota. I know that's a big hot button in the state. That is not the case. My objective is to contact people. It's to contact people and let them know we're here. It's to contact people to educate them. And if that requires a ticket, so be it. But the push that I'm pushing towards our officers and the administration of this police department is pushing towards the officers is to make contact with the citizens, that we're there to serve them and to educate them. That's my big push. Back to the second, thanks, John. So the role, our police department, we passed the organizational chart, which has not changed, but, and I can just talk about it real quick and then it will explain this slide. I did create a collateral departmental organizational chart. And so what we've done is we've made collateral duties for our sergeants to take a little bit of the pressure off of the 2 lieutenants that we have and spread the wealth on some of the supervision on some of the specialties that we have. It's been divided. All 5 sergeants have new collateral duties as of today. And those 5 collateral duties are training. And then they report to the training lieutenant, who is a commander. We have an administrative sergeant now that is going to handle things such as time off requests and some of the administrative duties that are day to day at the police department. We have a canine sergeant, and we have a field training officer sergeant that reports to our training lieutenant. And that field training sergeant is also our drone sergeant. So our drone program will develop, and we can hopefully purchase another drone and have that technology because it's the future. That's where we're going. And so I have these sub collateral duty categories under that organizational plan. So within the organizational plan of the police department, it's divided between the operations division, and support services. So this slide is talking about operations division. Operations is patrol. So in your mind, as you think about this council, it's the patrol side of things. It's that day-to-day out uniformed guys out there doing their thing. And their mission and accomplishment, their duty in accomplishing this mission is direct policing and directing their efforts to the projects that I've already talked about. So that's that slide. Next slide, please. The method of doing that is through patrol, and that's timely and efficient responses to calls for service, effective uses of the officers at sergeant level. So they're leading, they're not just responding to calls, but they're leading, and the officers are much more efficient. Complete investigation and documentation of all calls for service, and that we use the proper tools to do that, maintaining our oath to follow the law and to follow the statutes in investigative process. We want detailed reports. We want those reports to be thorough, and so the sergeants pay attention to that, and ultimately those reports are approved by lieutenants. We want proactive patrol during their uncommitted patrol time. So we have committed time, which is calls for service. They have to go to those because that is our job, and we've taken an oath to do that. But there are times when officers are not committed to do those things, and that's when you see them conducting traffic stops, doing extra patrols, business checks, premise checks, park checks, bathroom checks, skate park checks, those types of things. And then these activities should be directed by the patrol sergeants based on data, which we've talked about before. Next, please. And here's the measures of effect for patrol in the strategic plan. Reduction of response times. We want the guys to get there faster and safer. Reduction in overall crime rate by 5%. An increase in self-initiated activity. I put 2 here because I'm still doing some investigative work on finding out where we actually sit with self-initiated activities. And that may be higher and it may be lower. That they may be high in that. And then this is a big one. We want a decrease of declinations and reports returned for corrections by 10%. So if you think about how the criminal justice system works, somebody commits a crime, we write a report, we have enough probable cause to arrest them, they go before, or we take that report and all the evidence that we have to our prosecuting attorney, and then ultimately, if it's a good report and a good investigation, and we have enough probable cause, that person gets hopefully convicted of that crime. We do see, however, at times that reports are not up to par and or evidence wasn't collected appropriately and things like that, and it leads to a declination. We want to reduce declinations. I don't know what that number is, the hard number, whatever the percentage is, but we want to reduce it by 10% off the top. So if it's at 10%, we want to be 0 or negative 10% if we can do that. It's easy to do if you just pay attention to detail, and the men and women of the police department are trained appropriately. Next. Training unit, it takes a lot of the same things I've already talked about, but the priority of tasks for the training unit to meet our strategic plan is officer safety and related training to officer safety, tactics and driving and things like that. Career development and leadership training, one of my primary goals within the plan is to develop leadership, to get the men and women of this police department ready to move up and take care of this police department. Effective provision for documentation of all training. This slips up in some police departments. We have a pretty good system. I want to improve it though, and make sure that we're documenting appropriately. The police department under post standards has 40 hours. Each officer has 40 hours that they're required to meet every year. And sometimes that documentation misses the boat. And although they may have it, it wasn't documented. And so we want to make sure that that's done appropriately. Equipment and vehicle management, this is a big part of the training division. Recruitment, if we ever need that right now, we are in good health. We are full. We have, all of our positions are full, but in the event that one opens up, we want to make sure that we recruit highly qualified people, that the candidate pool is big, that people want to come to this police department because we're professional and we're meeting this plan. And then we want to conduct a professional and efficient hiring process when that time comes up. Next, please. Okay, support services. As we go through this, there's a poignant moment in this that I want to talk about, that just by putting this strategic plan together, identified a huge need that the police department has, and just put it in your minds. Support services is detectives and everybody else that's not in patrol. And so that's how we've divided the police department organizationally. And the support services division supports the accomplishment of the police department's mission by providing resources in the form of intelligence, proactive SRO or school resource officer, and CSO, community service officer, investigations. Code enforcement, animal control, crossing guards, evidence, and detective follow-up are all part of this. And it's designed to support the efforts of the operations division. So although they're equal, one really does support the other. Next, please. The school resource officer, the method in supporting the strategic plan, I'll go down to the priority of tasks, is thorough and accurate reports, safety plans for each school, and to maintain an open and productive relationship with the school's administration. In my experience, that has been the hardest thing to do, is to make sure that we continue to enable a good relationship with administrators of the school. and that they trust us and we trust them. And that goes from either investigations of crimes that occur at the school to understanding what their policies are and what's a school situation and what would be a police situation. And we're doing pretty well at that, but I want to make sure that we continue. Next. Let's see. Our measures of effect for SRO or school resource officers to reduce school-related offenses through visits and enforcement, increase education of the students through programs such as DARE and some of the other ones that are coming out, and a decrease in parental complaints by communicating regularly with the administration regarding policy, procedure, and police responsibilities. It's been my experience that a lot of times it's just parents sometimes don't understand how the difference between police and school policy and criminal law work hand in hand. And so we want to better educate both the student and the parents. Next. This is what I identified. Community service officers within the police department. We have 2. And we want to prevent crime by having a visible presence, supporting the operations division through handling of calls for service, providing timely and effective desk and phone reporting, as well as supporting code enforcement, animal control, and crossing guards. We have 2 individuals that do all of the things that are listed there under community service officers' priority of tasks. If I had a wish right now, it wouldn't be to create another position for a police officer in the police department. It would be to create 2 CSO positions to help us facilitate desk and phone calls, reporting incidents, code enforcement complaints, animal complaints, ensuring that our evidence is meeting state statute, and to ensure that crossing guards are managed appropriately so that we protect the kids when they're crossing the street to go to school. That is a need that was, just by putting these slides together, jumped out and almost knocked me off my chair, because I think if you asked just about any police chief in the country, what do you need? And he would say, or she would say, a police officer. Not this guy right now. Our need is CSO officers. Just throwing that out there. Next slide, please. The measures of effect for our CSO is reduced response times for field and desk reports. Board time, which is our CAD, our computer assisted dispatch. We know the time frame of calls and how long they've been waiting. Usually community service officers handle lower priority calls and they tend to wait longer. We want to reduce that time. We want to get them out there. 2 additional officers would help with that. Organize an efficient evidence facility and process. We're working on that right now. We've got some things that we need to really work on to make sure that we are tracking our evidence, that evidence that needs to be destroyed is being destroyed in a timely manner and within the law, so that we have more room for more evidence. Reduction in animal-related calls for service and an increase in animal licensing and a reduction of sheltered animals. We work with the county to do that. But Ogden has a great system set up right now to help us with that. And a reduction in code enforcement calls for service through enforcement. And the big one here is education, because sometimes we can't enforce some of the things that people complain about. And so it's education. Help yourself to fix the things that you need to fix. Next. This just breaks down evidence. I kind of talked about it. We can go through this slide, John. Next, please. Crossing guards, just real quick, safety of our kids is paramount. Crossing guards are a difficult group of people to manage. It's a thankless job, and it's difficult to get people that can do the time frame of work split up on a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. Most of the individuals are retired. We want to make sure that they're safe, and it's a difficult thing to manage, but we can do it. And our measures of effect is proper reporting of damage and non-working equipment, the safety equipment that surrounds these individuals and our kids, and no complaints of unsafe conditions. We want to just get that to 0, and that the crossing guard coordinator will be involved in hiring the people, the good people, and the process to stay on top of turnovers, because it is a high turnover area. So if we can reduce those things, then we know that we're doing the job appropriately. Next. Investigations. Our method here to meet our goals is we intend to be the best investigative unit in Weber County. We may be small, but we can be powerful. And the North Ogden detectives will set the standard in knowledge, professionalism, skill. We have the facility now to set up trainings, and our detectives, there's nothing preventing them from training other detectives within the county to make them better and improve our relationship with the other detectives within the county, because we do work with them quite a bit. And that also includes the prosecutor's office. They have 2 investigators that we work with very well. In fact, they were just here yesterday. And we want to continue to get training from them and ensure that we're the best investigative unit in the county. Next. Our measures of effect is we'll maintain a culture of professionalism and unit pride. We want positive partnerships with other agencies. We want to exceed the average number of applicants when we do have an opening for detectives. A lot of times officers don't want to go into that area because of caseload, case management. It can be stressful. And so we want to make sure that we educate our officers that are in patrol that it's a good place to go and that they can do a lot of good for the community through that work. We want to investigate rather than just manage caseloads. We want to achieve a 10% increase in cases resolved by arrest. So a lot of cases just get closed. You know, victim's not cooperative. We don't have enough evidence. It's just a bad case. We want to investigate it thoroughly enough that we can achieve a 10% increase in arrests through detective investigation. And then, of course, we want to constantly pursue personal and organizational progress. So unit-specific trainings will be conducted in addition to those mandated by the city, the state, or just the department. Trainings will be tailored to an NOPD investigator. I think that's important. And then we want to exceed the 2023 utilization figures of Rapid DNA and the Homicide Task Force. And what that's saying is we do have the opportunity to reach out and utilize Rapid DNA that's state-sponsored and is free. And we can assist the state and local prosecutors in setting precedents by using that Rapid DNA, because everybody's afraid to use that in their investigations because there's no precedent saying this is a great thing to use. We have the ability to test that out and see if we could set precedents here in North Ogden and get that going for the state. And the HTF is the Homicide Task Force. I want to ensure that the 2 detectives that we have feel confident enough and can meet the requirements of the Homicide Task Force so that they can assist other agencies when they have big critical incidents and or events like a homicide that they can assist with, which will only grow their experience and confidence levels as they move forward. Lieutenant Child was on it for years. We were on it at the same time, and that's where he gained a lot of his experience. So even though we may not see the crimes here, they get trained in other cities. And then when we do have that critical moment where we need a homicide investigator, they know what they're doing. Next. Records Bureau, we have a great records manager in Paige, and her priority of tasks to meet our goals is thorough and accurate and efficient management of records that regularly exceed personal performance standards. There's a standard within the state. She's exceeding it now. We want that to continue. We want timely and accurate responses to grammar requests, which she gets every day. We get dozens a week. And we want to maintain an exceptionally low error rate for NIBRS reporting and for our reports. So she catches problems with reports. She contacts officers. We, of course, want to catch them on the supervisory level, but we want to ensure that she's able to do that on her level as well. Next. We're almost done, guys. Thanks for being patient. Our victim advocate, her priority tasks are efficient and effective victim management, double management. We want her to do a really good job and provide essential victim services. We have the YCC, we have other services that are out there that she's aware of, and the police department is a hub to ensure that these victims get the services that they need, primarily domestic violence. That's what she sees the most of, but also child abuse and other things. Maria is fantastic. It makes them feel like we are there and that we care, which we do. And we can get those victims to have the desire to continue prosecution. The toughest thing to be when something traumatic happens to you is a victim, because it brings fear. And so oftentimes victims are reluctant to testify. They say they will, and they don't show up. She ensures, or they, whoever it is, will ensure that that victim will continue the prosecution process. And we have a reduction in refusals to prosecute, and then we have a reduction in repeated victimization. Oftentimes we see a cycle of violence, and we want to ensure that those victims don't fall prey to that. Next, please. PIO. I did change the collateral duty of PIO in the organizational plan or structure of the organization. The PIO will report directly to the chief of police. I think it's important that we have a good relationship, and that I'm aware of the things that are happening within the city. And I'm also aware of what he or she may be wanting to put out in press briefings, the things that I wouldn't handle myself personally, like a critical incident. There are smaller things. He reports or she reports directly to me, and we can work together in communicating the information out to the public. Priority of task there is to continue to build and maintain relationships with new media outlets, utilize social media, and monitor social media sites. That will be the PIO's responsibility, is to ensure that we know where we stand with the community. Next. The constraints that I've identified to performance are staffing versus demand or burnout. Impediments from legislative efforts like JRI and the limiting use of technology like cameras and plate readers, and the inability to keep career criminals in prison due to bail reform. Those are my three biggest obstacles that we see as a police department in ensuring that we meet our three primary goals. Next. The next biggest one, and this will be the last slide, and I'll take any questions that you have, is mission creep, which creates crisis management. Sometimes when you have a plan, you can ratchet it up because of successes. So we see that, hey, CompStat's working, and we're reducing crime. Well, if we're doing that, then we can do this. And if we're doing this really well, then we can do this. And it spreads everybody really thin, and then you finally find yourself failing completely as a police department because you spread yourself thin. So we're keeping an eye on this. I don't think it's going to be a problem. We've got some good leaders that are managing this police department, and I think we can make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's it. Any questions?
Yes.
Great presentation. Thank you. What's the approximate estimation for cost of 2 more CSOs? Would you need to purchase more vehicles as well, or is there a way to not do, just give me a breakdown?
We would probably have to purchase one additional vehicle. If we got one CSO, we could manage with one. If we got 2, we could also manage with one. So we'd have 2 CSO vehicles. I think that would be fine, because we're going to divide the duties of the CSO officers and specifically have them all handle calls in the office. So reports that get called in, and then we'll have 1 or 2 field CSOs, and they'll break up their duties. One will handle calls, one can manage crossing guards during school. And we want to take 1 CSO officer that doesn't just do calls for service in the police station, but handles evidence. That's a big one. We also want one that's in the field that's going to focus on code enforcement. So they know the rules. When things pop up, like popped up recently, they understand, they go to them, they have a good rapport with the businesses, and they hone their skills in while they handle calls for service that are regular calls. The cost, it depends how you break it down. If we hire at the lower level, the lower end, it's significantly less than a police officer, but manageable for the person that can have a good job and get the training that they need. My goal is to hire officers as CSOs that want to be police officers, and then we can roll them into the positions when they open up. The beginning wage is about $21 an hour for a CSO, and so it's 2/3 of a police officer cost.
Okay, so approximately 100,000-ish with benefits and everything? Maybe vehicle not included, or I understood what you said, that you don't necessarily need a vehicle per person, but I'm just thinking through
I think, yeah, between 90 and 100.
Okay.
Mhm.
per person.
Per person.
Okay.
Chief, how do you anticipate coordinating with John, who's the city public information officer, in regards to information going out from the police department? What's the connection there?
It's either me or the PIO, depending on the level of the incident. A critical incident, you and I would discuss things prior. Any critical, like an officer involved shooting, that's the best example that is one of the most serious things that a police department can get involved in, or an officer can get involved in. We would communicate, you and I would communicate our message. My desire is that we would do it together, and that the police matter portion would be handled by me, and some of the city things that, for example, I'm a big believer in meeting the 4 criteria for information that's going to go out to the public. When you send a message out, no matter what it is, we want to make sure that the public understands what happened, and we're transparent in saying what happened. We want to ensure that the public understands safety concerns, if there are any, and if there's not, we want to make sure that we talk about those things. That's a good time for Mr. Call to get involved. I think we could go back and forth. The city's safe. The chief has assured me that these are the things that have been met. This is what they did. We can go back and forth on that. What we would like to ask the public to do, shelter in place, thank you, or not thank you, but make sure that you call 911 if you see anything suspicious. Those things will all come out. We repeat those things to ensure that the community feels safe, and then thanking people. And that's another time where Mr. Call could get involved in thanking all of the people that helped: the homicide task force, the county attorney's office, the city council, depending on the circumstance, if it was emergency or, water main broke and we flooded half the city, whatever the circumstances are, we can work together to do that. If it's city specific, administrative specific, or there's some type of big hoopla, I'll support him and he can support the police department. So we just work together in those things.
The reason I ask, I just think it's important for the city council, because they're the ones that get the calls and take the heat. So, it might be good to copy them on communication so that they know they're not cut off.
I think, Mayor, I'm sorry, I probably should have said this. The process, nothing will go out without all of you knowing about it. So I will pre-write if it's a critical incident and list out what I'm going to say. And you will all be CC'd on it. We'll get all of any concerns or any questions that you might have. We'll evaluate it, make sure that it hits all of the points that you want it to hit. And that the priority is to make sure that the people are safe and that they feel safe when we share those messages. And I'm also a firm believer in doing it one of 2 ways, and depending on the circumstances. One is we set a time. We don't go out to the scene and meet press on the scene. And we have to get a message out to the people right away that they need to be safe, and this is how they can do it. We schedule a time. It'll be an hour later, 2 hours later. It will be here at the police station. It will be controlled. We invite the media. And during that time, when they know that it's coming up in 2 hours or whenever it might be, we can send that information out to you. We can discuss it, make sure that we're all on the same page. Invite you to be there if you'd like. And then we can put out the press release and answer limited questions at that time. So it's very, very controlled. Another way of doing it, if it's not as critical, is to pre-record it and put it on Facebook. And so we get all of the buy-in from the council and from the mayor and from John, and we can pre-record it and put it out on Facebook. And that message is out, it's secure, it's ours, and it's controlled. The phone calls will come into the police station and we'll say, watch the video. And if there's any more information that needs to come out, we'll let them know, hey, and tomorrow we'll do another one, or it will be live or whatever the circumstance.
Councilmember Pulver, you had a question?
And I think we're good on the incident stuff. I'm pretty sure we're good on that. I think from my point of view, and I've been working with several people and Susan, including Susan, on some of this and just going down the social media rabbit hole on how to do it. I know in fact, there's a North Ogden PD X account that, is, I'll say dead, but it has been updated, and I guess.
It's dead.
Yeah, and I guess the point is, and I think, Mayor, I think that's where maybe you were headed is, are we going to stick with the one North Ogden as being the thing that, public, because Public Works has another thing. Anyway, I guess my point is that if we use that one point and use that, but my thing is Facebook needs to be, tethered in with all these other things. Because working with Barker Park, I mean, the biggest thing is getting Instagram and X and all these other things, because right now Facebook is for everybody. I think, I don't want to age anybody, but talking to anybody that's 20 to 30, they don't know what Facebook is. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is Instagram and X, and that's what I'm trying to push. And if you look at what we have for One North Ogden, sorry, I'm going off on a side trend. You can count them on, it's hundreds, not thousands. So
It's my wish as well.
Yeah.
Over, I think that it would be appropriate, and if accepted, I think that if not only Facebook, but X and Instagram, there's a way that you can push them all out at the same time, and that the North Ogden Police Department has their own Facebook page separate from North Ogden. I realize that we want to all be one and be together, but I think that it's important and could run information that's not necessarily related to the city itself, the city administration, but only to the police department. Like, for example, be on the lookout stuff that's non-serious. We can manage that. The PIO would manage all of those things and would clear everything through me, and I in turn would clear it through John. If it involves the council should handle their own. If it's all one thing, we can put it on both and kind of work that way. I've seen it work very well in the past, where information comes, we can monitor to see our measures of effect better because they're commenting directly on certain things. And a lot of the positive stories, like the ducks and helping the baby and things like that, can just go right on there. It represents the city as well, but it's specific to the police department.
and Mayor, I think this is something we need to put in that. I think we had an agreement, some kind of protocol thing that we were going over before, and I think we need to dovetail that in, and so that we.
I would prefer to have links to those so that people go to a common page, because we found it just turning into a disaster when everybody had their own page, frankly.
Okay.
And I think the citizens that have spoken to us, the ones we've heard, saying, we want a central place. If we want to find out what's going on in the police department, there ought to be a link on the city's page at front, but we can have further discussion on that,
Yeah.
where it links to a page that's controlled by the police department, but there's a central place where people go to get
Mhm.
all the information in the city.
Yeah.
So we can have further discussion.
Yep, and just to get off of that real fast, but the third-party audit of the Flock system, I think, is something that we should push hard on, at least, from the city's point of view, just to get that, because I know the purveyors, the owners or whatever of that system are like, oh yeah, we could do that. And yeah, sure, you could do that. And that's sort of what my day-to-day job is to be a third-party auditor, to be an independent person that says, yes, you're doing everything you said you're going to do. So I think that, to be honest, if we're collecting stuff that is personal data, I mean, people are like, oh, it's not personal data. We're just doing this and that. Oh, that's great. But, open transparency, so I think if that's something that we can push, and I don't know if that's John or whoever, but that needs to be done as well. So, but
And that's something that could eventually, you have these dreams, right, of how it's going to look, right, and all these goals. On our page, on the department's page within the city's website, those things can go on there. Things like that, transparency, what is flock safety? How does it work? What do we actually look for? How is that helping us with crime? We don't have a big issue with uses of force, but uses of force, how many did we have last month? We can have a little graph on there. So we can pick these data points, and one of them being that, which is a huge transparency issue. And we want to make sure that the citizens are aware that we're not violating any amendments in the Constitution, and we're also fighting crime appropriately.
Yeah, in my opinion, you don't want to have anybody, the more transparency, the less people have say, oh, see that and see that. And if there's nothing to see, they're like, oh, and then they shut up. Kind of nice. Anyway.
Yeah, Chief, you may have, this may have been before your time, but we had some citizens saying, how do we really know that that stuff goes away in 30 days or
Yeah.
only people have certain access to it? And I think that's what Councilmember Pulver is speaking to is, do we look at the third parties and say, okay, yeah, it is going in 30 days and yeah, the access is limited.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of the audit that.
Yeah, I
Councilmember
forgot we
Pulver
changed
was-
chiefs there.
So-
I'm on board.
Maybe get with Councilmember Dalpaz and he can kind of give you some insight on the discussion on that.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions for the chief before we let him get over to his team and spend 20 minutes making sure nobody's got him tied up and so any other questions?
Getting dunked, right?
I'm not getting dunked. Jason's getting dunked. He volunteered again to do that.
So appreciate your efforts and hearing good reports, on what's going on in the department. So keep up the good work.
Thanks for your time. I'm sorry it was long. I know but you should have a copy. And if you don't, make sure you get one. And if you have any questions, you can always call me. Sorry, go through JD.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back. Is Eric with us now?
No, he had to go. So he asked me to do it, so we could do it whenever in the agenda you want to.
Well, let's go ahead and get it done.
Okay. So let me pull up the plans. This is for the White Rock phases 1, and we can talk about 2 as well. This is up on the North Ogden Divide Road. That's this road up here on the north. Phase 1 was kind of a larger phase. Phase 2 was actually a smaller phase. But Dylan and Eric have been working tirelessly with the developer to get all of the improvements in these subdivisions finished, streetlights installed, connected, all that sort of thing. And then in particular, one thing I know that the mayor in particular has some interest in is that there's on the back of these lots, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for the group, lots 1 down through lot 6, and then even in phase 2, there's lots that come down here. There's a swell that's supposed to be installed and maintained so that any potential surface water and including some debris that might roll off the hills that are built will stop and not go into the neighbors. It is not a swell that handles any water from this detention basin. It's just the water would normally come off these lots, basically a rainstorm. I describe it as the water that would cross the sidewalk in front of your house. It's that amount of water, so not a significant amount. But they have gone out, inspected, been working with the building department to make sure that they're all getting installed as part of the landscaping and occupancy. And I know that Eric and Nate went out there and have been verifying that the work's being done like it's supposed to in phase 2. Phase 1, we had some issues, and I think those not necessarily have all been resolved, but there's still a few houses to be constructed on between lots 1 and 6. Can't remember which ones are empty, but there's still some work to be done there. But everything is up to standards or is being repaired or has been repaired because this is final acceptance. So we're ready to accept it and release the escrow on these accounts or these funds.
So John, is the issues we've been dealing with the residents in regards to the flow of that going the right direction and it connecting, is that all done before we approve this? Because it seems like we've had a heck of a time getting compliance with the developer on this?
So I know that one of the lots between lot 1 and lot 6 is not completed yet. It hasn't been landscaped. And so I don't know for sure. I mean, there's not a house on it yet. So I don't know if that lot's been completed. But Eric, when I talked with him this morning, said he's confident that the swells are going in like they're supposed to and things are working like they're supposed to. For the most part, the berm is actually the most critical part of the swell that holds rocks from rolling off the property if they do come down the hill. No one has seen any significant amount of water in here to where it actually would be a measurable flow. So it's really the debris berm that's really the most critical component.
So you're using the term it's going well. Is it done or is it not done?
Lot 3 or 4 is not constructed and doesn't have a house on it, so they haven't finished the landscaping. So I think the swell is in place today, but I don't believe there's a guarantee that in 12 months it's still going to be there. That's why the building department and Eric went out and looked at it and have a plan to make sure that it complies as those houses are
Because
finished.
it becomes the residents' responsibility to maintain that once it's in. Is that correct?
Correct. The individual lot owners are supposed to keep that swell in place so that water and debris work like they're supposed to.
Councilmember Dowpass.
What are the disadvantages of holding off on the final acceptance if we were to do that? Just because I know that I was involved with one of the residents that called me up there to come take a look at it, in person. And I know that there was a lot of concerns about making sure that it's done right. So is there an option to wait a while, or is that not advisable? What are your thoughts?
So from a legal standpoint, we didn't actually escrow for the swell. It's not considered a public improvement. It's a private improvement that is required by the individual lot owners. And so holding the escrow money for that swell is problematic. They've been in their conditional for 12 months, and according to the engineer and folks, they have complied. And it really is becoming an issue of code enforcement and the building department to ensure compliance.
Is there a way to put like a major red flag on those lots that have not received occupancy, just to make sure that there's no way we miss it? Like in your system, internal systems for Eric and building permit and everything, I just want to make sure that there's a really good way that for the lots that haven't been built yet, that we make sure we don't miss it next time.
I mean, my understanding is that the only lot that was approved that missed it was lot 1, and all the others it's been part of the process and it's been fixed, or maybe it was lot 2. But I mean, I know that the building department's aware of it. It's they don't have a flag that can flag a subdivision because each parcel is its own thing, but they do have flags that once a permit comes in, if you pull that permit up, every time you pull it up on your iPad or your phone or your computer, it has a thing that says, "Hey, verify this." And so I think that's the kind of stuff that Nate and Eric have talked about, but I can verify that.
I think that'd be for those 2 lots you referenced, John, that aren't completed yet, where the swell would be required. Because it is hard to complete that without a house on it, but once the house gets on there, we probably need to get the whole thing.
And again, the hardest part about this improvement, this swell, is for all practical purposes, it doesn't actually serve a purpose. Like the best thing it does is hold rocks from flipping into the neighbor's yard. They're once the landscaping is installed, barring a torrential downpour where the whole hillside's moving anyways, there's probably not going to be any water moving into this drain and crossing to the neighbors. But it's there because the engineers required it. What we've seen lately is every single engineering firm is requiring these on all hillside developments, just because they're covering their butts for their insurance purposes.
Of course, this has been a high-risk area historically in the city, right? That's where the big rock slide came down, I think,
Right.
right there. So I guess any other questions for John before we seek a motion then to approve the final acceptance of White Rock subdivision 1. Then we'll get a motion for number 2. Someone like to make a motion to give final approval?
And Mayor, I move that we approve the final acceptance for White Rock subdivision phase 1.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Any other further questions or discussion? If not, we go with a voice vote. We'll start with Councilmember Barker and just work down this way. Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We now ask for a motion concerning White Rock subdivision phase 2. We have a motion to final approve.
Mayor, I motion that we approve the final acceptance of White Rock subdivision phase 2 as noted by Mr. Call.
Okay.
Second that.
Second by Councilmember Severing. Any more questions for
Quick
John?
question.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Sorry, quick question. John, you mentioned that the swell situation is better in this phase. Is that right? Is there any concerns there?
In this phase, lot 204, for example, actually has a pipe in place. And they built the ground up so there isn't the same slope, but as it rounds the corner in that subdivision, the slopes get dramatically less significant between the two properties. And so there's less issues, but I do know lot 203 is the one that Eric and Nate went and visited to verify the installation of the swell and things yesterday or today.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Mayor, so John, I'm just operating under the assumption that Eric feels really good about these decisions and
His plan was to come with a recommendation that for adoption. Scott could confirm or deny that. We talked about it this morning in planning commission or planning staff meeting.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions? Okay, Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, I think we're on to item number 7, which is on our agenda, which is probably item 8 now, but it is the item regarding discussion or action to consider the petition of annexation for property located at 1661 North Washington Boulevard. Ryan's going to give us a little update on that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Hello, Council. Today we have Travis Taylor with We States Company. They have applied on behalf of Jim Hill to petition for the annexation at that location at 1661 North Washington Boulevard. The Weber County surveyor has reviewed it and approved the annexation plat map to Gardner Engineering. From here, if you guys approve the acceptance of the petition, it will go on to the Planning Commission for the recommendation, which will come back before you at a later date. It is being proposed for an R4 zone. If you have any questions, Travis Taylor is here.
You sat here a long time. You ought to at least ask him one question. But that's okay. Any questions? Any questions?
The zone doesn't need to be addressed at this point. It's just simply going through the annexation process at this point, right?
Correct. All you're doing tonight is accepting the petition.
And so we did agree that we're not going to force others to do it, right? That was something that the council decided, we're not going to do that, right? Because that was what the county was saying, that anything nearby, we're going to force to annex and not have these little
Yeah,
islands
the-
anymore,
The
right?
county hasn't come up with a
Okay.
program to make that work yet.
So that means everybody that's around, well, not the northern part, but against Washington has to come up with their own little money to, if they ever want to.
Station, correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Then I would seek a motion for acceptance of the petition of annexation for the property reference that located at 1661 North Washington Boulevard. we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we accept the petition of annexation for property located at approximately 1661 North Washington Boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Is there any further questions or discussion? All right, we'll start with you again, Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Severing.
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpass.
Yes.
Motion passes to accept the petition for annexation unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for, thanks for coming. We'll be looking then now for you, Mr. Call, to give us a discussion in regards to the contract with TechServe for IT services.
Thank you, Mayor. So council, the reason this is coming to you, it's a contract for a year, but it's over $25,000, and under our finance code, anything over $25,000 that's in a contract, the council needs to review and see. It's essentially the same contract we've been operating under for the past 8 years plus, with the exception of on this one, the contract time per hour is going up from the 145 that it is to 175. So the monthly cost is essentially the same as it has been, the $3,050 or $22 a month. But it's the after hours that used to be 145 and are now 175. And that seems to be on par with what the market is doing. With this consultant, we don't typically exceed the $3,000 a month that we spend with them. We used to, but by bringing Bryce in-house or having Bryce take on a lot of the IT stuff, we don't have a lot, and we actually end up doing what they call banking hours. So if they don't do enough of their hours to spend the $3,000, then we get to roll that into future months. And so we save, I hate to say we save them up, but then what we do is we have them come in and help us with big projects that may take 16 hours. And instead of going into the penalty and paying the 175 an hour, we stay on the 145 an hour. And anyways, Bryce and them keep track of it, and it seems to work pretty well. But we've been really happy with them. I think under our agreement for the RFP, we will have to go out to bid in 2 years. And until then, we can keep doing extensions essentially like this. So
John, how much money were we using going over the allotted hours? Because we've created a whole new position in the city, basically with Bryce. Is there any way that can reduce the 3,000 a month? Because, that is a whole new position.
So when we were going over, it was typically between $1,000 and $1,500 a month we were going over. And so with Bryce taking this role on, to the mayor's point, we are, because of it, he can't do that, administrative services manager and treasurer. And so we're going to be transitioning him out of the treasurer role and hiring someone to do that. So we are adding a position because of all this as well. So I don't think we've been hitting the 3,000 per month, but in the 6-month average, we're getting pretty close because of those bigger projects. But a lot of it was tied to this building. So we can do a little research and see how much we can save. Maybe we can knock down the hours closer to 2,000 a month, and we'd save, $12,000 a year if we did that.
Plus not going into the penalty thing, because, we're creating a position that's probably costing the city with benefits, probably $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
So hopefully we could save some of the previous costs, but I don't know, that's something you know more about.
Well, it's hard with this building having come on to know, because there was a lot of special projects. For example, we had quite a few hours rolled over, and we didn't go into penalty while they were doing the servers and migrating things over and things. So we ended up with the rollover hours not exceeding the contract rate for that month.
Is there a provision, I'm sorry, my memory's not as good as it used to be, but any provision if we find out we don't need the 3,000 that we can renegotiate that during the contract, or is that for the duration of the contract?
It's the duration of the contract, which is 12 months. So we're committing with this agreement to basically spend the 36 thousand a year. With them and those rollover hours, they do roll into the next contract. So if we ended up with a bank of a lot of hours, then we would be able to roll it into the next contract and potentially drop it down to 2,000 or 1,500, depending. There is a certain level with this group that they probably wouldn't service us if they weren't out here doing 10. This is 20 hours a month essentially. I just imagine there might be a floor where they have to have a certain retainer or they can't take care of us.
Any other questions for John? Councilmember Delpaz?
This is kind of the world I come from. It's what I do for my job. And the pricing seems very reasonable. It doesn't seem extravagant to me. So just my 2 cents.
So the hourly rate? Yes, it's just the fact that we're creating a whole new position.
Yeah, I get your point.
So. Okay. Any other questions?
So this goes for the full year, and if, like, I think to the mayor's point, if we find that Bryce is, we're not, or if we're not utilizing, we're not using this guy enough, or, anyway, then we can always, the following year, say no, or.
We aren't required to have a contract. I think that I would always caution that we should always have a second group. We went through an experience once at the city where we ended up having to sue the company that was providing our IT services because we moved to a new company and they refused to give us passwords.
Oh, good heavens. Okay.
And so I think having this model where you have kind of a more sophisticated company that could do the really complicated stuff, and then we're not paying someone, I mean, you wouldn't normally for a full-time person pay them $300,000 a year, but that's what $145 an hour relates to. So, but we do have that option. In fact, with the RFP, we can go out and there's several other companies in this state that provide these same services to cities of our size and even bigger. So
I think it would be nice to have a plan working with Bryce to see if we can get that usage down.
Yeah, because I mean.
Because we are adding.
Yeah, because, and like you said, the city's not going to go, it's going to grow. And so with that comes city growth, staff growth, because there's no way that you can deal with the same amount of people with more people with the same amount of staff. So
the other thing that's scary is the state is out auditing entities. It's a self-requested audit. Kaysville or Farmington just went through it. And the state auditor's recommendation with the new security rules and stuff was that they add 4 IT people as full-time staff members. So
that's because they don't have to pay for it. It's
Right.
easy to.
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
to tell
So-
them that.
you're talking cybersecurity, right? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, so
okay.
it's not unforeseen that there may be a time when the state auditor in the state will say, hey, every city needs to have 3 to 4 people. I mean, or meet these critical things, which will require 3 to 4 people.
Okay.
So that'll be
Unfunded mandates.
a fun tax year.
Okay, any other questions? We're talking about agreement A13-2024. This is to approve the contract with TechServe as explained by Mr. Call. Do we have a motion regards to approving that agreement?
Mayor,
Councilmember Barker,
make a motion to approve agreement A13-2024, renewing the contract with TechServe for IT services.
thank you, sir. Do we have a second to Councilmember
second that.
Barker? Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Any further questions? If not, Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Severing,
Yes.
and Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I believe we're now on to item number 9, which has been requested by Councilmember Dowpaz. This is a discussion on the potential need for an ordinance regulating commercial dumpsters.
With your phone call that you had before this meeting, is there anything you want to start me out with, or just should I roll with it?
Oh, I mean, if you feel like we need an ordinance or whatever, maybe
Well,
explain the problem and
Let me
how
just,
we're trying to resolve it.
yeah, let me just explain. And most of you guys were, I think, copied on the email from the resident, so you're somewhat in the know. But we had a resident that had a complaint about the dumpsters behind Lee's Marketplace. And we're not placing blame at this point. We don't want, they're great neighbors and they're a great business. So we're just trying to figure out if this is something that would be necessary. The resident said that he experiences birds flying into the dumpster, picking up raw meat type of stuff. And then the raw meat gets transferred over into his yard. And he's had instances where his dog has gotten sick and some concerns around stuff like that. So initially, this is when John was gone, but David recommended, hey, call it into non-emergency dispatch, see if they can handle it. Come to find out, there's not like an ordinance that requires dumpsters to have their lids closed. And so this is just a discussion right now to see if you guys believe that that might be something that could be necessary. I mentioned to the mayor before this meeting, I was guilty of not working with the police department and, asking that maybe we kindly go and talk to them and see if there's a solution that can be resolved. The mayor made a phone call to, was it the director of Lee's Marketplace?
Bryce.
Yes. So he's going to talk to all of the tenants about the problem and see if there's something that can be resolved, but just wanted to see if there's any thoughts. I don't love the idea of creating more ordinances if it's not necessary, if we can resolve it otherwise, but I just thought we should talk about it publicly.
Councilmember Pulver?
And I think the big thing is too, is the wind. I know everybody has, the stuff you stick out on the night before, and if there's a big windstorm, your entire garbage is now traipsed across everybody's yard because of the wind. And that could be the same thing, because didn't we have, was it somebody else's garbage that got blown around because of the wind as well? And I think that's, like you're saying, is how do you enforce it? Hey, I closed it, but the wind opened it. I don't know how you would do that, but at the same time, yeah, it is a concern if would you like to have raw meat thrown in your backyard and, your poor animals sickened by it? I don't think that's either. So, I mean, if it's, that one instance, and that's, to me, that's kind of a very specific example. And if to make an ordinance based on something very specific, I think Councilman Delpas, same thing. I don't want to do that. We don't need to.
Okay, and we'll see, Mr. Price committed to talking to the other users there, so.
I think we're good. Unless anyone else has any other thoughts, we'll just move on from it and monitor the situation.
Yeah.
And I can help be in contact with this resident, and let's see if we can get some resolution just through working together. And then if we need to later, let's bring it back up.
Okay, thank you. We've taken care of item number 10, which is the strategic plan presented by Chief Einan. Now move on to council department reports. We'll go ahead and start with you, Councilmember Delpas, on the police department.
Chief Einan's report was comprehensive. I don't see anything that I could add. They did have the night out against crime tonight, which was a little bit of an unfortunate conflict. I would have loved to have been there, but that's okay. So hopefully the chief was able to get over there for a few minutes and help interact with the community. I'm sure it was a success. I was able to go last year and it's a good event. So anyways, that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Severing, do you have something you'd like to report?
Yeah, just some brief things, Mayor. Thank you. Scott has indicated that North Ogden has completed our moderate income housing report as requested by the state. And we are just waiting now for the state's approval of the report. And then also he mentioned that we're going to be focusing on, and I think the public's aware of this, but just an emphasis reminder perhaps that the southwest area of the southwest town area with some improvements there. And then it got a notice from Nate Davis about some of the new businesses coming to North Ogden, but Ryan Forsyth did a good job talking about that.
Mhm.
So,
And John, I don't know, I think it's public knowledge, there has been a revocation of a business license in town that will go through the process. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're currently in the appeal process on that business license. So
Okay. I guess that's public knowledge who it is.
it's just the new massage place in town. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on then to Councilmember Barker from the Parks Department.
Jamie says they're doing field maintenance right now on all their sports fields. They've already reseeded half of the east half of Orton Park from all the flooding. They'll do the west half later this year. They're looking to reseed Wadman as well here soon. Fixing broken slides, and they're going to top dress the fields with sand to make them retain moisture and play better. So they're working on a lot of parks.
Okay. I think council, probably the big issue that we need to make sure gets on the calendar and gets on the calendar quickly is the strategy for Cherry Days going forward. I think at this point in time, the committee has indicated they're dissolving for certain reasons. So we need to determine how we're going to move forward. Probably sooner than later, wouldn't it be, Councilmember Barker?
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
I hear the pickleball courts are being used fairly heavily, which is good. Okay, we'll now go on to item number 12, which is public comments. Once again, just a reminder, those who would like to comment, and John, if you have anyone online who would like to comment, please let us know. If you'd like to comment here, please step up to the podium, state your name, and if you're a resident of North Ogden, and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. Anyone online, John, with their hand up? I don't see it. Okay. Any comments from staff? Oh, Brenda, didn't see you sneaking up there.
You just barely made it. We'll permit it.
I had no plans and I probably shouldn't. Brenda Ashdown, I live in North Ogden. I'm so disappointed to hear about Cherry Days. I don't know if you guys remember, but I asked if there would be a plan for this committee to go on that you had, the only thing I can relate it to is PTA, president, vice president, somebody else that moves up each year and takes it on, then it doesn't become this huge thing for one person or committee to take on for 4 or 5 years. Sounds like it didn't happen. I just am really disappointed.
Let me
to see
correct
this fall
that.
apart.
It was in place. But frankly, the committee said that they are not willing to volunteer with the amount of negativity from other committee members and from the public. So we did have the process in place. But frankly, they said, we are not going to do that, putting our hearts and souls into it and having negativity from other committee members and from the public. So it was in place. It was working well. But frankly, I don't blame them.
That makes me really sad for
Yeah.
supposedly being a wonderful community
Yeah,
that they get
And
treated that
it was a
way.
lot of personal attacks.
yeah.
They just said, we're volunteering. It's not worth it. So we're out.
That's a
They were
shame.
personally attacked
That's a shame. Well,
by community members and committee members.
then my 2 cents is when there's questions of why Cherry Days is changing, that needs to be told. That instead of saying, oh, it didn't work, it needs to be specifically told that these people were abused by committee members and by citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I think frankly, they were pretty excited at one point in time to continue on. The next group in line were very excited to continue on until they start getting personally attacked.
Up until the last day, they were going to go again. And then
Yep.
it all changed.
I'm sorry to hear that. That makes me
Yep.
sad.
Sad thing.
There's one other thing, that question I had, and obviously I can't remember it. So thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Scott? Ryan? Anything?
Yes. I have two things, Mayor. I sent out an email today to all of you. The ULCT registration for the annual conference is open. So if you could take a look at that email and respond, I am happy to do the registration on your guys' behalf. For next week's Truth and Taxation meeting, we need to move the time of the meeting up until 5 o'clock or 5:30. State code says that any active items need to be dealt with prior to the public hearing. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on what time you would like to hold that meeting so I can get the agenda out this week.
I would suggest 5 o'clock because I think one of the items on the agenda is the development agreement
Correct.
for Century Farms, which probably would take some discussion. So if you're available at 5 o'clock, I would suggest maybe we begin the meeting then.
5 it is.
You
Okay.
got it. Thank
All
you.
right, and then just a reminder, council, if you decide to go to the annual meeting, that would be in place of going to the one down south. We haven't budgeted for both, so your call. Okay, Mr. Call, do you have any further information you'd like to share with us?
The only thing is Scott and I attended the meeting with Ogden City about the Cooperstown boundary annexation adjustment. It will be on their agenda on the 20th for active council. It seems like it's favorable. There's a few questions. One you might hear about is someone in the public utilities or public works department asked why we weren't living up to our agreement on the sewer agreement. I think it's the Silver Springs Sewer Agreement, which is the very southeast part of the city, 1510 north, right up against Mountain Road. I pulled out the agreement. They didn't actually have the agreement, so I sent them the agreement and then sent them the invoices showing that we've been paying on that agreement for at least $114,000 over the past 4.5 years. But I haven't heard back from them on what the concerns might be, so we'll just wait for that, and that'll hopefully be resolved before that meeting on the 20th. If you hear about that, as far as I know, we're living up to all our agreements, maybe even a little more than, so it seems like maybe they're billing us a little too much, but so we'll see if we can figure that out after all this is resolved.
Okay. Anyone from the council have any further comments? Councilmember Pulver?
Just something to, I know Susan's not online, but to stick in our bee in a bonnet, so to speak, whatever, is when they developed that corner of the undeveloped corner of Washington and 26, that or 2700 there, that we think about some sign that North Ogden City can publish things on. Just a B. There you go.
Okay.
Like an update?
Like any other sign that every other city in the entire state has that we don't have, that says, hey, there's going to be a Halloween
Oh,
party.
yeah.
The $75,000 pop
It's
signs.
not that fun.
We had a bid on them for 60,000 a couple of years ago, John, didn't we? Each?
I think it was 60. if
We'll
I
get
remember right.
donations.
Yeah. Plus, I think you got to be careful where you put it. That's a high traffic area. I don't think we want people taking their eyes off the road to reason.
It was Susan. Susan's not online, so I had to say.
We'll figure something out. How's that? Councilmember Dalpas.
I haven't had a chance to ask staff, so I'll just ask here. I saw some comments on Facebook about Mountain View Park being fenced off. So is that one being replaced right now? And I believe there was another, it might have been Orton Park. I don't know. I think there might be two that are cordoned off right now. Can you update
So,
us?
Mountain View is on the schedule for this year, if I remember correctly. And then Oak Lawn, we've had some vandalism issues there. I don't believe that's set to be replaced. But I think what we think happened is some kids took a butane torch to the slide and melted a big chunk of it. And so, but I'll find out for sure. I don't believe I think it's being closed down for safety to Oak Lawn, whereas at Mountain View, I think it's being closed down in preparation for
Okay. What
for
kind of
swapping it
kid
out.
goes around with a butane torch going at slides? That's just, okay.
You'd
All
be
right.
amazed.
Yeah.
Be amazed. Anything else tonight? All right, I'd be looking then for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Councilmember Watson's not here, so somebody's got to step up.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn is accepted.